Sorry about the late start. We've got a number of technical issues going on here today. One was related to our internet, and then we've got some tarmac being laid just outside the window. Unfortunately, the timing couldn't have been worse, but we might have hit a lull for lunchtime now, so apologies for that in advance. Lovely to welcome everyone this afternoon. My name's Kieran. I'm the Chief Exec of the Trust, and I'm joined by two of my very esteemed colleagues. So on my left, I'll introduce you to Rob.
Hi there, nice to meet you.
Rob's school principal, and on my right, so I'm sorry you might not be able to see us all in the same frame, is Chris.
Hi there.
Now I know that some of you have been in touch with us and sent us information, and you will have maybe had conversations with myself or with Chris. Oh, sorry, we've got it. We've got the three of us here this afternoon. We want to make sure that we answer as many of your questions as we possibly can, and we've done a number of these meetings over the last few months. We seem to get through all of the questions in about an hour and a half. So if you can stay with us for the duration, that'd be fabulous. But we do appreciate that some of you might need to go a little bit earlier. Rob, a couple of things about housekeeping you might want to mention just to make us go smoothly.
Yeah, I think if anybody's got any questions, there is a hand up function along the top of the thing there. So please put your hands up and we'll try and field those questions as we go. If people could have, which people are doing brilliantly, I think everyone knows this by now, we have their mic switched off as we go along, because otherwise if there's lots of noise, there could be lots of feedback. I know we're having some problems at this end, so we're trying to do the same here. And if people are struggling with bandwidth, sometimes helps if you turn your camera off in case it's breaking up a bit, but I think people are pretty well versed on this now. But yeah, if we go with that, that'd be brilliant.
Which is a shame for us because we don't get to see your lovely smiling faces, but hopefully you can see us. Not sure if that's any consolation, but we're here anyway. Now we have got a little bit of video for you to see in a moment, hopefully, if we can overcome these technical issues, and that really will give you a little bit of an insight into what the school sort of looks like, and you get a sense of the environment. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. Really, we know that you're all in a relatively similar position. Thinking about, is this possibly the right school for my son? Is it the right school for us as a family? Because the way we work is very much around supporting young people and families and looking at improving quality of life outcomes. If you haven't had a chance to look at the school website, there's a lot of information on there that may be helpful. And there's a whole section on quality of life, which gives you background around the framework, which you might be able to see in a slightly blurred fashion behind the three of us here. So we want to talk to you a little bit about the referrals process. We'll talk to you a little bit about the boys who are here and what we have to offer. We'll talk to you a little bit about our staffing and the environment. And then we'll go very much around the questions that you want to put to us. Now, we know that there's quite a lot of people on the call, and some of the questions you might have might be a little bit more person specific. We can pick any of those up later. So if we keep the questions relatively generic this afternoon, that's probably easiest for us to be able to answer. So anything about the school in general, anything about the admissions process, anything about the offer that we have and the boys who are here, anything about residential, anything like that, we're very happy to pick up on. Anything like that, very happy to pick up. So Dean. Okay, while Dean's working on that, I'm going to just pass over to Chris to talk to us a little bit about the admissions process and what's the best way for people to contact us and information wise.
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. So as Kieran says, I would imagine that most people on the call this afternoon will be at a similar point at the minute, where they're trying to get a sense of whether or not Swaycliffe Park School could work for them as a family. I think my role as lead on referrals, I'll try and explain now, and the process, our admissions process. So, from my point of view, there's two groups that I hear from. I hear from parents who get in touch with the school to find out a little bit more about what we do and about the cohort of students that we have here. Parents also get in touch and ask us to have a look at paperwork, whether that's EHCP or other professional reports, so as we can give them a sense of whether or not we feel that Swaycliffe could be the right fit for their son. The other group of people that we hear from are local authorities. We hear from them if they wish to place a student with us, and we also hear from them if parents have been in communication with the local authority and have stated to them that they would like the local authority to consult with us. So a local authority referral is a referral that is the funding looks like it's already in place and the local authority are looking to place with us. A parental preference referral is when the parents are working with the local authority. The funding hasn't been agreed, but they're trying to ascertain whether or not a placement would be viable. So we've got those two groups of people in those three sort of places on the referral: the parental inquiry, the parental preference, and the local authority referral. So when that paperwork comes into me from the local authority and they've consulted with us, my first job is to review the HCP and all the professional reports which support that document. After this initial review and discussions with the wider referral team, we're in a position to give some feedback. And at that point, we'll get back in touch with the local authority and we'll let them know whether or not we can move forward with that referral. If we are not able to move forward with that referral, we will give our reasons for that. And we'll also hopefully be able to help and support families by saying it might be a good idea to look at this type of placement or get in touch with these people. For those referrals which we are able to move forward with, I think from the paperwork, we can only ever do that tentatively because we get a sense of the student, but that's all it is from the paperwork. I think in some cases, we get a strong sense that the student might not benefit from the approach that we have at Swaycliffe because we might not be able to meet those needs. For the students who we do feel that we can meet need, I think that we'll get back in touch with the local authority and say that we can tentatively move forward with that referral. So the next stage of that would be for our lead clinical psychologist to review the paperwork. So this secondary review of the paperwork, the key points of that review are to make sure that the student would be safe if they were to come to Swaycliffe, and our existing students would also be safe with the new arrival of another student. So from that review of the paperwork, following that review of the paperwork, if our lead clinical psychologist remains happy, she'll set up an online interview with the student and with their family. So following that process, if Dr. Nikki Mills, who's our lead clinical psychologist, is happy, the student's happy, and the parents remain happy, then that will come back to me. And at that point, we'll look to set up a tour of the school. So we'll invite the student and parents into school for a tour so as they can get a sense of the environment, and also it gives us another opportunity to get a sense of the student. Following the tour of the school, again, if the student's happy, parents are happy, and the school remain happy, we'll look to set up an assessment visit. The model which we use is a 3-day assessment visit where the students, they come in, they join an existing tutor group, and if it's a residential placement, they'll join one of our existing residential houses. And over those 3 days, they'll have an opportunity to get a sense of school life at Swaycliffe, and we'll have an opportunity to get a sense of the student and how they work. Following that, again, we'll get a lot of feedback from the student, from the parents, and we collect in the observations from our staff. And we're then in a position to make a good judgment as to whether or not a placement at Swaycliffe would be in the best interest of the student, their family, and also, the existing students that we have here. And at that point, we will we'll contact the local authority and the family and let them know of the decision that we've made at the end of the referrals process. Following that, hopefully, if the funding was in place, there'd be quite a quick turnaround, and the student could join us, and we could start to we'd look to set up a transition plan to help the student come into the school. Generally, our transition plans, we start with 3 days in the first week, build up to 4 days in the second week, and then 5 days in the third week. And after that, we monitor the student for another 3 weeks during that transition period, which usually takes around about half a term. And at the end of that, we have a post-transition meeting where everyone comes together. Rob Pine, the school principal, myself in my role. Each student has a key worker, and then we get the student and the parents as well, and we review that initial 6 week in school, and we set the sort of priorities there. But before all that, right at the outset, when we start working with the student and family, the quality of life programme is fundamental to everything we do. There's a baseline survey to complete, and when we have that post-transition meeting, we'll be able to look at those. We'll be able to look at the information that's come up from the quality of life survey, and we'll be able to set some quality of life targets because we want to start that work immediately. So I think that summarises the referrals process, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a number of questions around that, because there's a lot of information there, but I'd be happy to answer any of those questions as we move forward this afternoon.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Chris. And yes, I'll put a lot of money on the fact that there'll be additional questions, because there always are. And that's a lot of what people want to find out about this afternoon. I think we're nearly ready to roll with the video, which would be brilliant, because I think that'll give you a bit of a sense, and you can think of any questions you want to ask during the video. But just one thing that has cropped up quite a number of times recently, and that is people saying, oh, can we come and have a visit? And as much as we'd love to be able to accommodate visitors, the issue we have at this end, just so you understand, is that we get over 200, 250 inquiries a year. And what we've got to make sure we're doing, first and foremost, is not being disruptive to the smooth and efficient running of the school. And we've got to be able to manage our time and how school works on a day-to-day basis. So we do understand why people would want to come and look at the school. We haven't been able to do that through COVID, but also the volume of people interested in taking up places has increased immeasurably. So we're looking into this as an issue and seeing if there's a way around it, and I'm sure there will be. But at the minute, that's the situation while we go through the rest of this school year. So we will invite people in as and when we get to that part of the process.
But
Rob.
Of course, if you do send your paperwork in to us and we do have a look at it, of course, you can come have a look at that point, isn't it? I think that's where people are very welcome to come have a look, isn't it?
I think yes.
Don't expect you to go too far down the line without actually having the school.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for that, Rob. Dean, are we ready to go with the film? And we'll do that, and then we'll pick up any questions. Okay, we'll just mute our mic at this.
Hello and welcome to Swaycliffe Park School. My name is Chris Heslop. I'm one of the assistant principals at the school, and I'm going to give you a short guided tour. The first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the fantastic location of Swaycliffe Park School. We're set in the Oxfordshire countryside with extensive grounds which help to create a calm and peaceful environment for our students. In addition to that, it's a fantastic facility for those students to use. So this is one of our Key Stage 3 classrooms. Within Key Stage 3 at Swaycliffe Park School, we have 4 tutor groups of 6 students. You can see that the room is set up for the 6 students. We've got our 6 student desks. We've got our teacher desk. We've got our interactive whiteboard. The class of 6 are supported by 2 members of staff, the teacher and the tutor LSA, who works with them across the curriculum. If you look around the classroom, you can see the desks are the same. However, the chairs are very different. We've got 4 students in this particular group who like to sit on the orange chairs here, but we've got one of our students likes a chair that rocks back and forward a little to give them that sensory input. And we've got another student who likes a chair which moves a little more side to side, again, for their sensory input. At the back of the classroom, we've got one student in this class who likes to use a standing up desk. So these individual needs can be incorporated into our approach. The reason why we do that is to bring down any barriers that the students have so as they can concentrate on their learning and make that academic progress, which we want them to do. So round here, we have the Key Stage 3 quiet rooms. We put 3 quiet rooms in during the last academic year. And the idea of these spaces is to give the students an area which they can go to either work quietly, because maybe they're finding the classroom environment just a little bit noisy. It also gives them an area to go to work with a member of staff, maybe on a literacy intervention or a numeracy intervention, where they can have some peace and quiet and they wouldn't be disturbing others. And they're also great if students are struggling maybe a little bit with their emotional regulation. It gives them a space where they can go, they can be with a member of staff, where they can have a conversation, or they can just have some quiet time alone. Since we put them in, they've been really well used. We've put quite big windows into the quiet rooms, and we've also put windows and doors in the back of our Key Stage 3 classrooms, which means the rooms are accessible from those classrooms, but it also means that students can work independently in these areas and the staff can keep an eye on them from the classroom if they want to work independently. This is a Key Stage 4 classroom. First thing to draw your attention to is the furniture, which is bigger than the Key Stage 3 furniture to meet the needs of our older students. I think it's also worth noting, you'll notice that the carpet in this classroom is the same as the carpet in the Key Stage 3 classroom. The wall colours are the same. The lighting is the same. We've got the interactive whiteboard, which is the same, because we're trying to create that consistent environment across the school, because we feel that that's in the best interests of our students and is going to help them feel comfortable wherever they move to in the school. Another point to mention is in every classroom, we've got laptops available for the students, because some of our students find recording their work on a laptop much more effective than recording their work by handwriting. We'll always support students to develop their handwriting, but there's no pressure on them to write if they find that difficult. A real strength of the curriculum at Swaycliffe Park School is the range of subjects that we offer. Great example in this corridor here, where we've got the design technology workshop, the food technology kitchen, and the science lab. At the core of everything we do is quality of life. The school have developed a quality of life programme to help our students and their families during the time that they're with school, and then hopefully that will follow through for the rest of their lives. When they are at school, there's 4 key areas that we're focused on at all times: communication, independence, self-management and achievement. And throughout the students' time at the school, they'll always be working to develop their skills in each of those areas. At Swaycliffe Park School, we've got a very strong therapy team. We've got 3 speech and language therapists, 3 occupational therapists, 2 clinical psychologists and 2 clinical psychology assistants. Our approach in the school is to embed our therapy team into everything we do. So that means that their offices are within the education block. They're working with the students on a daily basis, both in group sessions and individually, just depending on students' needs. This is our occupational therapy room, which is used by our 3 occupational therapists when they're working individually with the students on their caseload. This is the gym. It's a very well used space in the school. During the school day, it's used for PE lessons. It's also used at break time and at lunchtime for sporting activities. In the evening time, again, a range of different sports take place in here. And then, in addition to that, it's used for some of our bigger events during the school year. This is the cafe, and I might be biased, but I don't think there's better school food being served anywhere in the country. This is our expressive arts building, where our music lessons take place, both group sessions and individual lessons, and it proves really popular with our students. A really important area for the school over the past 2 years has been the development of our sixth form centre. Our numbers in sixth form have risen. 2 years ago we had 20 students and now we've got nearly 30 students. So in keeping with the rest of our approach at Swaycliffe Park School, which is small transitions all the time, we've created the sixth form centre away from the main education block to give the sixth form students that sense that they are growing up and they are going to be treated slightly differently. Here inside the sixth form centre, the students have access to a range of social areas, to kitchen facilities, and also to classrooms and workspaces. Welcome to one of the residential houses at Swaycliffe Park School. This is the lounge area where the students can relax before school, after school, and also at the weekends. Each residential house has a kitchen like this. They are important social areas for the group, and it's also where they eat their breakfast, their lunch, and their dinner. In addition to that, the kitchen also provides a great opportunity to help the students develop their independent skills, whether that's cooking, laundry, or being part of a team who keep the kitchen clean and get it set up ready for mealtime. All residential students at Swaycliffe Park School have their own bedroom with ensuite bathroom. At the school we recognise how important a student's bedroom is to them, and we really encourage the students to make that space their own, so as to feel at home when they're away from home. That is the end of the tour. I hope that you've enjoyed having a look around Swaycliffe Park, and I hope that the tour has given you a sense of what life is like at the school. If you've got any further questions or you would like any more information, please don't hesitate to get in touch with our admissions team. Their contact details can be found on the website.
And hopefully you're back with us now, and hopefully you managed to see that and it was of interest to you. We're happy to pick up any questions now because we're aware we lost a little bit of time there, so apologies for that. But we've got anybody who wants to start us off with any questions? Don't worry if you haven't, because we've got plenty that we can share with you. But if anybody's got a question to start off, they can either put questions into the chat and we'll keep an eye on that, or you can raise a hand and we'll pick up on that. And you know, there's no such thing as a silly question this afternoon. If you're thinking it, chances are somebody else is thinking about it as well. While we're just waiting for anybody to come up with any thoughts around questions, just a very quick overview of the boys who are here. So we start in year 6, we go up to year 14, so that's ages 10 up to 19. We take referrals throughout that period, although when it comes to sixth form, we really would say that there needs to be at least 2 years to make the placement viable. We work with about 20 different local authorities at the moment. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, that's 20, yeah.
And we're roughly half day, half residential, although there's a slightly in favour of day students at the moment. In terms of cognitive profile, very much like a mainstream school, so of broadly average cognitive ability. And Rob will talk a little bit about curriculum and sort of Chris about curriculum and timetables and pathways as we go on. At this point, Dean, could you see any questions in the chat yet? Or we've got a hand up, I think, from Keely. Is that right? Can we hear? Keely, welcome. Lovely to hear your question and to see you. That's lovely as well. How can we help, Keely?
Yeah, no, I was just very interested that you said there's been an increase in applications, and I just wondered why you thought that was. It's a question we ask ourselves quite a lot. I think that there could be a number of reasons for it. I think, you know, in terms of pressures on the education system,
our sector is receiving a lot of applications. In terms of applications to us, I think the work of the school is becoming better known as we share what we do locally, nationally and internationally through research projects and through presentations and conference attendance. And we've got our own QOL network that we've set up. So many people hear about us through that. And there are many family forums that talk about the work they do. And we know that some parents will say to us, oh, we heard about you through somebody who's at your school currently. So I dare say it's probably not a single thing, but a whole range of things. We'd like to think it's about the quality of work we do. And maybe that's a nice way to think about that this afternoon. But if you do want independent testimonials of the work of the school, please go to the website, look at the Ofsted reports, our autism accreditation, our advanced level autism accreditation, and our enhanced practice commendation. And you'll also see some of the work that we do in terms of presentations at national and international conferences. Rob, any other thoughts that you had about why we're so popular?
No,
is it you?
well, definitely not me. I think it's. I think we're very clear about what we can do and what we can't do, and when we really work hard in making sure it's the right school for the young person, the right school for the family, and we, lots of our young people have had previous failures or things that haven't worked out, or they're in a position where they're not in education. And when we do take a young person, we want to be really sure that we can do the job that we say we're going to do. And I think sometimes being able to, sometimes people overpromise and underdeliver. I think we try and deliver. We say we do something, we do our very best to make sure we can deliver that. And I think that means a lot to families. And I think the positive outcomes that young people have with their time, the difference it makes to family life, the difference it makes to that young person, progress they make, the fact they find their place in the world when they're with us. They find that confidence, and they find that by what they're good at and what they're not so good at. I think that's a big thing for our young people, because sometimes they don't quite know where they fit. That speaks for itself, and I think that sort of message travels between parents and young people. I think young people are very, very proud of the school, very proud of being part of this school community. I think they feel like their needs are being met, and I think they feel like they can really work with all of the staff and with that multidisciplinary team in really ensuring that they can come out of Swaycliffe with the things that they need to go forward. And all of our young people are very motivated to do that. They want to be here, they want to be at school, and they want to be working with us to achieve those outcomes, even though they may have had a very difficult lead into being with us.
And I think it's also true to say, that's absolutely the bedrock of that. And I think a lot of this is about trust and relationships. But we've also spent a lot of time and effort getting the environment right. And hopefully you could see from the little bit of video the thought that goes into the environment. And the tarmacking has stopped outside now, so it's nice and quiet. But out of the corner of my left eye, we can just see the new building that we put up, which we hope will be open by May half term, all fingers crossed.
I think we've got a really, really established school. I don't think schools, from our experience in education, it takes a long time to be able to build the knowledge within a staff team, the infrastructure, the things behind it. It's been for all of us, we've all been here 8, 9, 10 years. Do you see what I mean? People before us, probably the luckiest head teacher in the country. The staff that we've got, they're all highly skilled, really good at what they do. And I do think that reflects on Ofsted reports. It's not because of Ofsted that we do it to get an outstanding Ofsted. We believe in those things that Ofsted judge people on. Really good safeguarding, good behaviour, students make loads of progress, leadership and management strong, teaching strong, teaching and learning strong. We believe in all those things, and that's what we go out to do that's right for the young people, and that is then reflected in an Ofsted. So I think I think they speak for themselves, and with our advanced autism accreditation as well, I think that, and we're Ofsteded every year, we're audited all the time by local authorities. So I think you can be really rest assured that we're doing our best all the time to make sure those needs are met.
Thanks for that, Rob. Very comprehensively covered. And I think the other thing that a lot of families like is the real strong focus we have through our quality of life framework on supporting and working with families as well. Okay, I can see there's lots of hands going up there, and I hope that answered that question, but please feel free to come back to us if it didn't. Did that hit the bill?
It did. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for getting us underway. Okay, who have we got next, Dean?
Questions in the chat, and this one from Josephine has asked, what happens if a child is a pig? For example, they'll only eat pasture and sheep.
Who wants to pick that one up? Chris, do you want to take that one up?
So I think that hopefully it came across in the video, but I think we're all very sort of proud of our catering team at the school. I think they do a fantastic job. What we have is we have our menu options, which are influenced by the students through student council and through key working and so on as well. We have a 3 weekly we have 3 menus which run over 3 weeks, and then we rotate them round. So our aim is to give the students a lot of variation in food, and what we tend to see is that a lot of students come to Swaycliffe, and they can be quite set on their diet can be quite narrow, and for some students that's been quite important because that's something that they've had control over in their lives, where other things have maybe struggled with. But what we would tend to see, particularly for our residential students, is that over time they will start to try different foods, because in the evening time they have an opportunity to go across, select what food that they want, bring it back to the residential house. They're also surrounded by their peers and their staff who are maybe trying different things and saying how nice things are, and it might just sort of tempt them in a little bit. I think the other part of that is that if they don't like something, they can try something. If they don't like it, we'll always find an alternative for them. Now, for those students who are a little bit, narrower with their choices, we'll always make sure that they're well fed. So if students do like plain pasta and cheese with that, we'll make sure that that's available for them, because what we want to make sure is that all of our students have a good intake of food every day, because that's going to be really supportive for them. But what we'll also try and do is we'll try and encourage them to try other foods. I think there's a fine line there. We don't want to put too much pressure on, but there'll always be opportunities and there'll be encouragement to try other foods. But for students who are quite restricted with their diets, we'll always make sure that they have the food that they need to make them, so as they can get through the day successfely.
Lovely. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I think as well, our OTs are all sensory integratory trained. Some of these issues are sensory. I'd say 70–80% of the students would come with very sort of particular eating habits. What we want to make sure, though, it's not a barrier to attending school. It's not a barrier to not coming. If it needs to be pasta and cheese, the first of pasta and cheese, it might stay pasta and cheese for the whole 5 or 6 years that we're here. But it is a very different relationship we have as a school that could sort of sometimes nudge students in a different direction without them even realising they're being nudged. And do you see what I mean? I think sometimes, it's I think in most cases where we have a sort of pasta and cheese scenario, which is quite common, I'd say 90% of those are shifted onto a more varied diet, which is also really important because pasta and cheese isn't massively healthy all the way.
I think I see quite a big difference in diet between our day students and our residential students. I think our residential students, because of the environment they're in, I think that they become far more varied in their eating, and I think it's something that, as Rob says, it's maybe not something that they're overly aware of, but as their anxieties come down and as they see, I think the peer, I think seeing others who they, other students who they can identify with trying different foods, I think that's something that encourages them to do the same.
I think some of it's growing up as well. When somebody's younger or at a certain stage, that's part of their development and wanting to sort of, not be that person who just eats pasta and cheese. Just reading something sometimes. Sort of.
And I think I think incidentally, these things can be addressed. We go out quite a lot. We try and get our students into different environments, and part of that is also about seeing what's out there and what foods are available as part of that. Hope that's a really good question. Thanks very much. So it really sort of gets into the nitty-gritty of some of these things. So hopefully that was a good answer for you. Okay, and we'll find out what sort of cheese is the one that works. Okay, Dean, what else have we got?
Another one from the chat, and then I think we'll go to the hands up.
Okay.
Simon and Eric have asked, they've said they're working through the process to secure a diagnosis, and would we review paperwork and consider submission ahead of a kind of confirmed diagnosis, as there's a severe backlog on diagnosis across the country?
That's thanks for that question. I dare say there'll be one or two people with similar concerns about that. We obviously need that diagnosis, and you need that diagnosis because you won't get the right EHCP without it, and we need the EHCP to drive the process. So we can have a look at things, but I think the most sensible thing is, if you've got professional reports, we can keep them on file. We can have a quick look at them. We can give you an indication. What we won't be able to do is to prioritise that. If there's a lot of other referral work, we know now that we've got a certain number of referral assessing weeks by the end of this summer term to make sure that we've got placements organised for September. So hopefully you'll appreciate that while you're going through that process, we've got some really hard-edged timelines, some related to tribunals, some just related to confirmations and young people leaving their primary schools or finishing off in year 10 or whatever it is. And it's really important that we focus on them. Your process, we will absolutely be with you all the way along the process, but you need that diagnosis, and then you'll need to get into the EHCP part of the process. So that will be potentially, unfortunately, a considerable amount of time. But please keep us up to date with your progress through that. And we're quite happy to look at bits and pieces in terms of professional reports as and when they come in, and we'll keep building that picture. Does Simon and Eric, does that answer your question?
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
A pleasure, pleasure. And we have to sort of put in that caveat of apology about timelines and what we can do, but we're a school that's open 38 weeks a year. We don't assess generally in the first or the last week of each half term. So that immediately reduces the amount of assessing weeks that we have available to us, and we have to work under different time constraints, and sometimes our timelines have to adjust because of circumstances in local authorities and other schools and the issues that parents are dealing with. So we try and be as flexible as we can, but we do have to have an element of prioritising ourselves. So thank you for your understanding with that one.
Where we go next to 0?
Well, Tina had their hands up, but they've just typed their question, so I'll read it.
Okay.
It said, hi, we have an ASD diagnosis and a report from Lorna Wing, but just about to apply for an EHCP and don't have that yet. We're schooling at home, and are you able to look at the report that Lorna's written and indicate whether the school might be a good fit?
We would be able to have a look at that, but we would need to see the EHCP and all the supporting professional reports that go to that before it went on to the next phase. So as Chris used a great word earlier on, he said tentatively. And so we're always going to have those, well, at this point, it looks likely, but we won't be able to give you any guarantees because we need to see all of that information in the round and to be able to talk to you about it before we can progress through from that sort of parental inquiry stage. And the unfortunate part of that is that sometimes we might be thinking, yes, it all looks good, but we need your local authority on side, and you need your local authority on side. So, start building those relationships with your local authority as soon as you can, finding out from them what are the options, what are they suggesting, getting a sense of what's the local authority's position on this. And that will help you with your thinking, and you can talk to us and we can help you. We go through this process a lot and we can help with that. Rob, anything else you think we should add to that?
No, I think that
covers it.
Covers it. I think it's really difficult when somebody's at school and it's really stressful, but every young person who's at school has an education, health and care plan, and for the local authority to fund, you're looking to get Swankley Park School named on the education, health and care plan. So the first part of the process is to get the education outcome written.
Yeah.
And to get that there, and then potentially, you may need quite a lot of resilience and quite a lot of determination, is making sure the needs are represented fairly on the education, health and care plan. And if they are represented fairly, that the needs are being met by an appropriate setting, which may take, and quite often can take, quite a fight.
And unfortunately, again, having an EHCP is no guarantee to getting Swaycliffe or a similar school named. So, you know, there's lots of moving parts to this, but we can help along the way. Dean. Alison. Hi, Alison.
Hello. Right. Hi. I think questions have been answered. Hi. But yes, I was interested to find out a bit more about the application sort of cycle and how it works and how early you should be sending what information you have in to get assessed. Because it seems, yes, I can see, as you said, there's lots of moving parts.
Yeah.
All happening at the same time. When would you recommend starting as soon as possible? If you have an EHCP, if you have psychologist, psychiatrist reports, to get the ball rolling?
Yes, I think. I mean, how old is your son?
My son's just turned 9, and he's had an EHCP since he was 5, but we're just having it rewritten, and he's just been reassessed, so I'm waiting on that report as well. I think
our advice would be to just get the process going, because and I would also say, and I think we would all concur here, you know, it's really important to have a look at a few schools.
Yes.
Because, you know, you want to be sure this is such a big decision that you're all making, and there are other schools like Swaycliffe around. We'll all do things in a slightly different way. We'll all have probably slight variations in the population of young people we feel confident we can do a brilliant job for. And you know, you've got to have that gut reaction that, yeah, that's the one, that's the place where we feel that this is going to be a good fit, where the school is the right school. You know, you're choosing the school for your son, for your family. We will be able to give you a view on whether we think we are that school for you. Because there are some things we're very confident that we can do a great job with. There are other things where we say, actually, you know what, there are other schools that are better at doing that than we are. We cannot be all things to all people. And we're very honest about what we can do, and particularly what we can't do. And
I appreciate that. That's actually very helpful as well.
Yeah, and well, I think, you know, time is precious. That's the one thing none of us can get back. We know the process is emotionally draining. Rob used the word resilience. People need that. It never comes easy to get to any of the schools like ours, out of county placements. So we just want to be as helpful as we can. So if you have things that you think will be helpful, then give Chris, Rob, or myself a call or send an email, and we'll do our best to look at them within that caveat of we have to prioritise those that are immediately looking for placement.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, pleasure.
Is that a good time to talk a little bit about what we offer and our curriculum and those types of things?
I think it's a perfect time to do that, Rob.
So, Chris, shall I do a bit and then
Yeah,
you do a bit? So I think lots of our students so we don't do PDA, for example. We don't do students with sort of behaviour issues. So it doesn't mean our students are perfect. Doesn't mean that they don't find things difficult, but it definitely comes from an anxiety point of view. And what we're looking for is when students come and we do the assessment time with the students within school, that they can respond to this environment, and that can make them feel calm and make sure their needs are met. So most of our students follow if you walk round, I'd hope you'd see a very calm, very normal kind of school environment. You'd probably hopefully think this is no different, apart from it's a bit smaller with 70 young people, classes of 6, 2 adults to every class, a therapy team in there. But students are following, and now competing with the builders, are following what you'd expect to see in a normal timetable. So at Key Stage 3, we work primary model, which is 11 up to 14, Chris? 14? 13,
Yeah.
14?
Yeah, year 6, year 9.
They spend lots of time in one group, so they haven't got difficulty with transitions. As they get more confident in the school setting, they will then move around subject specialists. In Key Stage 4, it's groups of 6, but they will be following pretty much a GCSE type timetable that you'd see in a normal school. We do things very differently, so we're not all about doing exams at the end of year 11. Some young people do some exams in year 10, some in year 11, then they sometimes do a mix of an A level or an exam in sixth form. Some of the students do a mix of to get the breadth of curriculum, because that's really important to our young people, because they know what they want to do and they're very clear on what they want to do. Might have a supported college placement as they get to that end of the Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5 end of the school. But our students would be within that cognitive ability range which you would see in a normal mainstream setting. So we don't do anything below sort of national curriculum levels.
Oh yeah, I mean, functional skills we offer for young people. We know that some young people have great areas of interest and strength in some subjects, but struggle in others. So we try and find, you know, the commensurate type of accreditation to go with that. As Rob says, you know, the structure of exams, we want people to get a small number of really good results. Nobody needs 10 or 11 or 9 or 8 GCSEs to go on and do any further study. So it's about structuring exams over 2, 3, 4 years. It's about making sure that we get confident young people and that we use the time we have to concentrate our efforts on not just that achievement strand of what our 4 Ys and the QOL framework, but how we're developing independence, how we're developing self-management, how we're developing communication, because those are the reasons why the boys are here. Those are the reasons why mainstream didn't work. So our focus in terms of preparation for adulthood is very much around getting a balance across communication, independence, self-management and achievement. That will include all of those academic and vocational qualifications, but it will also have significant stress on those other areas as well.
We do a huge amount of work all the way through the school on preparation for adulthood, so Gatsby benchmarks, careers, and we have really successful outcomes for our young people. We have some students that go to university, some students that go to apprenticeships, some students that continue with their study in college near their home when they finish, but there's a whole range of things. Some people that go into work when they finish with us, but what we're really trying to do is take the skills that we're learning in this very controlled, very calm environment and making sure that the young people can generalise those skills and use those skills outside this environment and they leave us. Good. Anything more to add?
I think the only thing I was going to add, just picking up on something that Rob said around our approach. So I think that all the students, we've got 70 students at Swaycliffe. I think all of those students have different strengths. All of those students have different areas that they find difficult. But I think the one thing that they all have in common is that they want to be in school. They want to learn. They're happy to be adult-led and follow the national curriculum. Rob touched on it earlier. I think that students who present with demand avoidance wouldn't respond well to our environment, and that's not an area of expertise for us. Likewise, students who present with strong behavioural profiles, that wouldn't be the way that we're set up. That's not going to be beneficial for those students because we don't have the approaches in place to make them more self-reliant. Also the same with students who present with sexualised behaviours. Again, that's not an area of expertise for us, and those students would be better supported in other environments.
Lovely. I hope you can hear us above the angle grinder now. We're getting the full repertoire of industrial tools out there this afternoon, so we'll keep our volume up and hopefully we'll outdo them. The other bit I'll just add on to the top of that, which is really sort of underpinning our quality of life approach, which is we know all the young people who come here have an education, health and care plan. We know they've all found mainstream environment tricky to navigate and to be successful and flourish in. But nobody wants to be confronted with what they can't do every day of the week. So the quality of life approach is hearing about aspirations. It's hearing about interests. It's hearing about what make people happy. And hopefully you saw that in the video, as well as thinking about how can we help you with some of these areas that you find a bit more difficult. And just like all of us, we've all got a profile of things that we like doing, things we're better at doing. And if we're confronted with all the things we can't do every day of the week, we possibly wouldn't turn up for work so often. So it's about playing to the strengths of young people. It's about playing to their hopes, dreams and aspirations, talking to families about that. But also, while we're doing that, finding out where these issues are that are going to be, if you like, putting a block on aspects of quality of life as well. Okay, hopefully that was of some value to some of you. Dean, have we got any more questions? Oh, great.
The first from M and TN. Are you able to disclose your fees as we're about to go to a tribunal and we're unhappy with the placement named in the EHCP? We need an idea of the cost differential.
We could probably do that privately, but I'd rather not bandy fees around across the internet. Would you feel?
Yeah, we're under sort of slight financial fair play rules of not price fixing between different organisations and things. So we could share that, and if you came to a tribunal, share that with the local authority as well.
Yeah, and certainly we are asked for our fees when it goes to tribunal, so that's why we wouldn't have a worry about divulging at that point.
What we wouldn't be able to do is somebody go to tribunal and without going through our assessment process and be able to sort of get us named as a school. So if you wanted to talk about us at tribunal and you wanted us to be an option for you at tribunal, we would need to have gone through the process, seeing the paperwork, having an assessment and offering a place, and offering the place the fees will be shared.
Yeah,
we can't jump that process and go straight to tribunal with the fees and offer a place and come into the school.
good point. Good point. Does that take care of that question? Have we got a thumbs up for that one, Dean?
No response yet.
Okay.
Yes, they said that would give us a call.
Okay, fantastic.
Next question is, which section of the EHCP is the most important and requires extra caution?
Well, I suppose the most important one is the one that names the school. I think I mean it's really it's about things, general rules, and we'll all chip into this one, but general rules of thumb would be making sure that all the therapeutic support that you require is in there, making sure that the environment is correctly identified. By the environment, we're thinking about the size of the class groups, the blend of the staffing, and by blend I mean the different specialists. We have occupational therapists, clinical psychologists, speech and language therapists, psychology assistants, as well as our learning support assistants, teachers, and residential staff. So it's getting those things right, and making sure that the curriculum and the peer group is right as well. So that you put all those together, that should run successfully throughout your document. That should lead you to a place that is not a mainstream environment, because the biggest threat within the system, if you're looking for a specialist school, is local authorities quite naturally seeing, and first protocol, can we meet these needs within our schools? Because that's the most efficient use of their resources. Chris, Robert, what would you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think
you've got a lot of tribunals.
Yeah, so I don't think it's any mean feat, the battle you might have with the local authority getting those things, education, health and care plan, and you know, having those professional reports is really important, and you may need to commission them privately.
Yeah,
you may need some legal advice. There are it's IPSI, isn't it, which is a voluntary one, but potentially an education lawyer to support you with that. It is sometimes a huge investment up front for families. You know, families sometimes have these things on credit cards and all types of things, but I think they all feel it's so worthwhile when they get the young person here, because suddenly those needs are met and all those things, all those difficult things that they've been finding happening are not there anymore. But again, please talk to us. Some parents do lots of reading, get really into it, really get a really strong understanding, and they're able to sort of go through that process on their own. So it's all sorts of different scenarios for different people. Sometimes a local authority will suggest a placement. and they'll say, yep, we can see there's a need there, and they'll suggest us. We do get some local authority referrals as well. They're the ones that we really hope for, because if everybody's aligned, that makes things a lot more easy for people. But
and I think that part of that is that rule of thumb, is it? Talk to your local authority all the way through. Get a sense of what they're thinking, what they're offering. If they suggest something, go and have a look at it. Even if you know in your heart of hearts it's not the right place, you need to be able to say why you think it's not the right place. You've got to be, which I'm sure everybody is, a very reasonable person, and be open-minded to what the local authority has to offer, because that's just one of the natural hurdles that you have to go through in order to get to the next stage.
I think sometimes lots of people could be nervous about the residential aspect of the school. I would say that out of the, I think Keys works somebody at the moment that's very keen on residential placement, but I think the residential side of things is what people wish they had sometimes when they're a day student, because it isn't sending away to school. It's a sort of, I really think it feels like an extension of the family, and it's people staying away, or is, but you know, combining school life with home life, and that mould works really well, I think, and that's something which I think people need to think really carefully about, because it's very difficult that when you've got a day placement to convert that into a residential placement. So that's something you need to think. And the residential aspect of things does increase our geographic area beyond what people can do on a day-to-day basis. But I think people really trust the staff here. The young people really enjoy being here. Their peer groups here, and
there's a full program of
things going on. Sometimes we've got more going on than you can offer as a family. The kids here definitely get more than my kids do at home, so it's very tempting to be here. And I don't think it's any. If you take your image of the old sort of stereotypical being sent away to boarding school, I didn't go to boarding school, but what you can imagine that as, with dormitories and all those things, it's individual ensuite bedrooms, it's key working, it's small groups, it's families being spoken to every day, it's young people speaking to their families every day, it's parents popping in tea during the week, it's boys popping home during the week. It's couldn't be further away from that.
We seem to have got some sort of, sounds like a helicopter out there now. They're pounding the tarmac as well as drilling it, grinding it. Goodness knows, I don't think there could be much more machinery out there. So apologies again for the background noise. Let's see, have we got any other questions in the chat or any other hands up at this point, Dean?
Yes, there's been some good dialogue in the chat about where to find lists of special schools, and someone recommended the DFE website. I don't know whether you've got any other places you can find.
There's the Good Schools Guide. We're part of that, and other schools like ours are part of that. Your local authority should produce a local offer, and that may be more or less helpful depending on how they've populated it. You could contact IPSI, as Rob mentioned before. They'll give you advice on different schools. The autism show coming up in June. There's one in London, one in Birmingham, one in Manchester. Many of the schools, we go to that. We meet families there.
We go to London and Manchester. We don't go to Birmingham, but yeah.
But all the other schools probably do, possibly do, depending on where they are. Schools go on both those days to meet families, so you can get a sense at those. And I think you've just gone to the Autism Show website. It'll give you all the details of where they are, when they are, and who might be there. It's probably, yeah, it's. I think that's probably what we can think of. But DFE list is probably a good place to start. You know, some of the schools in our sector. So we're considered the non-maintained sector. There's also the independent sector, and then there's the maintained or the state sector. So the charitable trust schools in the non-maintained sector, there's a small number of us across the country. The small number of independent schools run by the larger groups, generally like Priory Group, Cambion, Witherslack, and so, you know, pros and cons to all of that, but good investigation, because that will help you get a sense of what's out there, what's the landscape look like, what's the offer, how do people work, what's the pupil group, really important, that peer group. You know, we always want to know that any young person comes here can have someone they can relate to. Not saying that they need lots of friends, because some people's quality of life is not having lots of friends, but having people to relate to is really important. Social participation is one of the key strands of quality of life, which is why we've got a communication strand.
Plenty of more questions. We've got a question about PDA diagnosis and do we accept children with PDA?
Chris, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, so mentioned that a few minutes ago. I think that students who present with demand avoidance tend not to respond well to the approaches that we have in place at Swaycliffe. It's not an area of expertise for us, whereas for other schools, some of those that you would find in the areas that Kieran and Rob have just been speaking about, they would be much better placed to support students who have that diagnosis.
I think that's right, and I think, you know, that's, we said earlier on, we don't try to be all things to all people, and we know that there are different approaches that work with different young people. That's why we're very careful, and our admissions process is so rigorous and time consuming, because what we would not want for anybody is for a placement not to work.
Yeah, Fiona has asked, she says, my son is 13 and a diagnosis of ASD and ADHD. He's currently at a grammar school. He's academically capable but struggles to keep up with writing. His issues aren't solved with the provision of a laptop, and his EP report and soon to be his reassessed EHCP say that he needs structured teaching, writing, on writing, and a multi-kinesthetic learning environment and small group supports. What support do you provide with written expression? He also currently avoids work that he thinks he'll fail at, so he will probably need a lot of support to remediate the effect of 2 years unsupported needs. Can you describe how that might work?
Do you want to pick some of that up, Rob? Or
Chris, really,
We can, yeah, we can both have a go at that one, Rob.
a lot in there.
So I think, first of all, a lot of the students who come to Swaycliffe would be quite similar in that they have a fear of failure, maybe don't feel comfortable having a go at things they don't know they can be successful at. I think that the culture at Swaycliffe they'll see is quite different, and through the relationships that they build up with staff, through the, you know, through their sense of being part of that group and seeing other students in there, that, you know, their peers working as well, they'll see that actually it's okay to have a go. We might not get it perfect the first time, but they'll know that it'll be okay and they'll work towards that. And, you know, for some students they find that difficult, but I think we're quite adept at working with students and getting them to a point where they do feel far more comfortable about attempting tasks that they find challenging. In terms of supporting students with their writing, I think that we've got you know, we've got some staff who are trained to work with students and support that, whether that's within Key Stage 3, whether that's within Key Stage 4 and the qualifications that are going on there, or, you know, within sort of individual interventions. I think the literacy is a massive focus in the school, and, you know, a lot of students at Swaycliffe have their individual literacy needs, and we'll work with them to identify exactly what those are. I think that the professional reports, you know, as well help to guide us on those and different sort of assessments which have taken place previously. But we'll work with the student and we'll find a way, you know, with that, you know, with our literacy team, but also with our speech and language team, who've got great insight into that area as well. And we'll find a way to work successfully with those students to give them an opportunity to, hopefully, it sounds like in this case, be able to independently get to a point where they can independently record their thoughts. You know, I think for a number of our students, that's a long-term aim, and if it comes during a time where they've got qualifications, you know, we can look to put access arrangements in place and normal way of working in place in the classroom to support them. But our long-term aim will always be to make students feel independent, you know, get students to a point where they can record work independently.
Rob, do you want to add anything?
Yeah,
to
I think
that?
the normal way of working, like you said, can be a laptop, but it can be someone who scribes. And the dynamic, you know, the staffing ratios have got the classroom of 6 young people to 2 adults. Normally, you know, that's something possible, and if that's a normal way of working, something we could do. But like Chris was saying, it's making sure that we're doing the quality first teaching and breaking it down and chunking the information, and students are clear and they've got the vocabulary and they've got the pre-learning so that they can really access that independently, or not independently, they can access in that group of 6 and be able to record that information.
I think in one of our English groups who've just moved into Key Stage 4 this year, there's 2 students in there who sound a little bit similar in this instance, and for, you know, for the last 4 months they've been working with the teacher to understand how to go about answering a question, you know, particularly those extended answer questions in terms of what information, planning it, structuring it, how you would start it, and, you know, the staff will really help them scaffold that, so as they move through the school, they get more and more confident with it, and then they're able to work more independently later in the pathway.
Excellent, well done. Thanks for that. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight onto that. Keely, you're back.
I am me again. Apologies, everyone. Thanks. Just a quick question. I wondered how important year groups were in obtaining a place. So it could be, for example, that a child was suitable for the school, that you could meet their needs, they'd suit the school, and then you're already full in that year group. How does that work?
Yeah, I can have a look at that. Yeah, so Keely, I think we don't necessarily look at year groups. We tend to look more at key stages. So at Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, we have at the minute, we've got 23 students. We have capacity for 24 students. So 4 tutor groups of 6. So within those tutor groups, if there's an opportunity to line the students up in their chronological age groups, we'll do that. For instance, at the minute, we've got a tutor group who are exclusively year 9. We've got 6 year 9 students in that group. However, we've got another group within Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3 who've got a year 6 student, a year 7 student, and some year 8 students in there, because socially that works well. What we also have is at Key Stage 2, 3, they have maths and English lessons 1 and 2 every day, and those subjects are streamed. So we have 2 within our Key Stage 2, 3 staff. We've got 2 English specialists and 2 math specialist teachers. So, you know, they work with those groups. So we've got streamed groups there, and that means the students from across the Key Stage are put in the group which is most best suited to them. And I think as well, there's other opportunities for that, such as our outdoor curriculum, such as Enterprise, where they have these opportunities to work with students across the Key Stage. Further up the school as well, I think we don't necessarily just look at year groups. We look at when the students move into Key Stage 4 and into the 6th form, all those students are going to be on slightly different academic pathways, and they're all going to present with slightly different needs. So we'll try and align them most closely with their peers who, you know, present with similar needs.
I think we'll also be really honest up front where we are within who's in the school currently, when we can, you know, if we assess when we can offer a place from. So, for example, at this time of year, you might be saying there's a place ready from September. Does that make sense? So you're not, you know, and if we do assess, we do offer a place, we will honour that place. So you're not in a position where that's difficult for you. Do you see what I mean? In the process.
And I think the other thing to bear in mind is, you know, some of the boys, a lot of the boys who come here have had a tricky time. They might have had a year out of school. The process might take time. So it can be meaningless to be chronologically year 9 and then given a year 9 curriculum if you've missed most of year 9, year 8, year 7, whatever it is. So we've got to take that into account. And as we said earlier, we structure things over a longer period of time so that year 11 becomes less of an issue, because it's just another year, because you might do all your GCSEs in year 12 and none in year 11. So it's about what's the right trajectory for a young person, what's the right social group, and what are the logistics within school that we can actually manage, given that we've got a set number of places that we can offer every year.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay.
I don't think we've got any more outstanding questions or hands up at the moment.
Okay. Rob, any other sort of thoughts that we might leave people with in terms of just the general running of the school, the future of the school, the developments, the things that are going on?
I think we've increased in size. We were a school of around 50 students. We've increased to sort of the 70 student number. We're obviously doing some development of the site. We're in a lovely 23-acre site with a big Grade 2 listed manor house. The setting is absolutely lovely. I think you know, you're here today because you know, your son is needing potentially an education health care plan, and they're needing the right school to meet their needs. I think local authorities are not necessarily going to be forthcoming with offering a school like Swaycliffe, and I think those who unfortunately do shout the loudest do tend to unfortunately get this amazing opportunity to be somewhere like this. I think so. Don't be disheartened. Don't think, but do be ready for really, you know, being prepared to really push for a place like Swaycliffe if that's what you feel is right for the young person.
And we're quite happy to field chats along the way. I can see a hand up before we go to Chris's concluding remarks. Do we know who that is, Dean?
Hi.
Sorry,
my internet connection went. So you may have just answered this question.
Okay, well, let's give it another go and we'll try and answer it better if we did it already.
So I have an EHCP. I'm in the tribunal process. I know that fight. But due to it being a long process, my son's mainstream placement has failed, and he is currently not in education. You mentioned your transition process, which I'm glad you've got one. But if children have not been in education, is it still just like a 3-week kind of process, or do you have kind of other experiences of transitioning children into school who have been slightly traumatized from education in their past?
Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, so I think we use that as a sort of starting point as to that would be an average sort of transition, and that's where we start. However, if students need something that looks slightly different to that, we can work with the student, we can work with the families to make sure that those initial weeks are successful, because that's what we want. We want those initial weeks to be successful. We want the students to be able to come in with as low level of anxiety as possible and be able to present themselves in the best possible way, because we want them to be able to develop good peer relationships, good relationships with staff. We want them to have that positive thoughts about the school in those formative weeks. I think that sort of going back a stage to the assessment visit, again, I think that we can look at that sort of differently, but what we have our experience sort of tells us is that 3-day assessment visit, although it's not critical in terms of it has to be 3 days, what we do find is that students who struggle to cope with a 3-day assessment visit will take a long time to transition fully into the school. So it's quite a good indicator of that. But although that's our sort of preferred approach, we'll always work individually with students and with parents during that transition time. And I think that, it can be much longer than 3 weeks. It can be as long as it takes, as long as we're seeing that sort of incremental sort of, we know where we're trying to get to, and that is the students being in full time with us. And if it takes a little bit longer, then that's absolutely fine.
I think leading up to 3-day assessment with young people out of school, parents have done a lot, working with the school, done lots of build up to that, coming in, having a look around in the evening when there's nobody here, coming and spend a bit of time, and just building that up very gradually so they're ready for that 3-day assessment. And the 3-day assessment is not a pass or fail type thing. If it's a day student, might be 3 days, do you see what I mean, or 3 parts of days, or a half day, or thing. But I do think we know that the students who, in this very supportive environment, in this very kind environment, in this very gentle way that process is done, the students that aren't able to do that, like Chris said, can really struggle to access the education if we do offer a place. So it's about being successful, knowing that if they can complete that process, they could be successful. But it is very, very supported, very gentle, lots of communication with home, ask as many questions as you like, bring the right sandwiches, turn up at a certain time, finish at a certain time. But what we're just looking for is seeing how that young person responds to Swakely Park School environment, and they're able to sort of be in with us, supported for a period of time.
Yeah, I think when we offer a place at the end of the admissions process, we want to be confident that that place is going to be sort of viable long term. And I think what we've found from the process which we use at the minute, that gives us that confidence.
Lucy, it's a great question. It throws another thought as well, and this may be for others to think about as well, in terms of timelines and tribunals. And I don't know if you've got a tribunal date, but when you're thinking about if I need to go to tribunal, don't forget to factor in that you may need to commission professional reports. You might not be able to get a speech and language therapy report for 4 months, or a psychology report for 5 months, or an OT report. The other thing is you've got to work with us because we've got to be able to do our assessment. And so we've got to be able to fit into that timeline, and you need to know where we're up to with our assessment list. So if you've got a tribunal for the end of July, but we've got no assessment slots till October, then you can't go and have us named because we won't have done our assessment and we won't be able to offer a place on the back of that.
Occasionally, parents have got a type of school named.
Yes.
Especially as autism, non-maintained school names. But to get us named in the tribunal, you would need our assessment report. You would need to have done a visit. The judge would want to know that the young person had been here.
And quite often, as Rob gets called to tribunal, because it's about, they'll be asking, how can we meet need? And we can't say that unless we've done our assessment. So hope that makes some sense. Lucy, have you got your tribunal date?
It's been vacated many times due to various issues with the judge. But I've got 3 children going through the tribunal process. I've had all the assessments and I now have a barrister because so I'm getting it sorted. Thank you.
Okay, you sound very well on top of things. You've got a lot on your plate there, but if we can be of help, if you want to give us a call, please just do so.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We're coming up towards 2:30. For some reason, it always lasts around this amount of time, within about 5 minutes. I think people have had enough of us after about that. Anybody else with any final thoughts or questions? We're very grateful to you all for giving up time. It's always lovely to be able to show people around, but I hope you understand why we can't do that. Actually, I'd be glad you're not here today. It's absolutely pouring with rain now, as well as having the builders and the dust and everything else. But we will get to invite everybody at the appropriate time when we've had a chance to look at your papers. So I hope it's been helpful. Have a look on the Swakely YouTube channel, as well as the website. Lots of little insights. We've got some animations there that we've done that highlight aspects of practice, some parent events, and some of the things that the boys have been on. So there's lots of good stuff to have a look at there. Have a look at the website and keep us up to date with your progress. And we look forward to hearing from you. Rob?
Thank you very much, everyone. Look, lovely to meet you all virtually.
Thank you.
And as in the 2 Ronnies, it's goodbye from me as well. Thanks very much to Dean behind the scenes and to Rachel, who's been monitoring everything. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Thank you.